With Bungie hanging up their hat once the story of Noble Team was told, 343 Industries entered the fray and took up the mantle of development responsibility for the Halo franchise. They swiftly began working on Halo 4, a new adventure for Master Chief and friends, with Dawn the first level in their first standalone title. Before Dawn, Dr. Catherine Halsey gives insights into the lives of the children chosen for the Spartan 2 program, which Master Chief was a part of, during a brief prologue.
Children's minds are more easily accepting of indoctrination. Their bodies more adaptable to augmentation. The result was the ultimate soldier.
Halo 4's most prevalent theme is the divide between man and machine and the discussion of what it really means to be human, which makes 343 putting it front and centre from minute one a clear statement of intent, a demonstration of how important they deem it to be. Given the prologue subject matter, Master Chief will be the first character you think of, but equally the further the story progresses, the clearer it becomes that it applies just as much to Cortana.
Before this is all over, promise me you'll figure out which one of us is the machine.
I shan't delve any deeper into that aspect of the game at this stage though, as it's not overly relevant during Halo 4's earliest moments. Dawn continues Halo's story 4 years and 7 months after the trilogy concluded. Halo 3 ended with Master Chief in cryosleep drifting in space, although the legendary ending did leave things on a cliffhanger, with a mysterious planetoid we'll soon come to know as Requiem drifting into view. With an intruder alert sounding across the remains of the derelict ship, Cortana wakes Chief. But Ben, I hear you asking, why is he wearing different armour to that he had on at the end of the trilogy when he's been stuck in a tube for donkeys? The answer apparently is nanomachines, best not to question it too much. Your initial goal is to reach the observation deck, but first it's likely you'll find a terminal which provides an extremely quick recap of events in Halo Combat Evolved 2 and 3. Getting those new to the series up to speed is by no means a bad idea, however it also includes an error so basic it boggles my mind.
Pursuing the Covenant flagship after an attack on Earth, Spartan 117 arrives at Halo Installation 05 to find the Covenant erupting into civil war. After preventing the Covenant from firing the ring, 117 followed them back to Earth in search of a Forerunner installation that can activate all the galaxy's Halos.
That is not what happened at all. As you can see quite clearly here, it's Miranda Keyes and the Arbiter who prevent Installation 05 from firing at the end of Halo 2, with Master Chief not even on the ring at the time. I cannot fathom how not a single person managed to catch something so sloppy which appears mere minutes into the campaign. Thankfully, the rest of Dawn is nowhere near as exasperating. Despite its age, Halo 4 is to this day a very visually impressive title, and a lot of kudos should be given to 343 Industries for that. Playing it at 4K resolution with an exceptionally high frame rate, it gives plenty of modern shooters a run for their money in the looks department. What sits on top of that raw beauty, the aesthetic and art direction, is handled poorly frequently during later levels. I'm looking at you especially, ridiculously over-designed Forerunner areas, but the Forward Unto Dawn is one setting where I think a good balance is generally struck. Rooms lit only by flashing screens, gloomy corridors, and air thick with what looks like ash combine to create a foreboding atmosphere few later sections in Halo 4 manage to match. I've a thorough dislike of this climbing section which cuts through the tension though. While there aren't massive button prompts flashing on screen telling you when you need to reposition, Master Chief instead looks in the direction you need to head, which is way better. It's still an early sign of Call of Duty-esque design sensibilities beginning to creep into a series which never needed them. It's only a speedy climbing sequence on this occasion, but it will soon enough permeate much of 4's design. Watching an elite get chucked down an elevator shaft is a nice reward once you get to the top at least.
I thought we had a truce with the Covenant.
A lot can happen in 4 years. Either way, he's probably not alone. We should be careful.
Arriving at the observation deck, it's time to do some shooting, or it is once you've done some assassinating first, with Master Chief and Cortana making a shocking discovery after the Covenant have been cleared.
The good news is these Covenant aren't outfitted like standard military. It's possible we just came across a rogue salvage ship. complete.
Maybe they haven't recognized us.
That's one possibility.
You might remember that in Combat Evolved, Bungie also gave you an opportunity to silently take down a grunt to get used to the concept of occasionally being stealthy, and this is only the first of a ton of similarities Dawn shares with other opening missions in the franchise. The setting is of course a Halo staple, with the aforementioned Pillar of Autumn, Halo 2's Cairo Station, and Infinite's warship Gabrakan all unfolding within ships and the like disconnected from the rest of their campaigns. You also have to fight off enemies who arrive in intervals and burst out of boarding craft like you do in Combat Evolved and again in 2, and there's also a firefight outside where the vacuum of space muffles your shots, which is also a part of Cairo Station. Dawn also features a race to escape the ship as everything explodes and crumbles around you, which 343 Industries would later build on too, with a more extravagant version of it appearing at the end of Infinite's first level. After Sierra 117 shook things up at the beginning of Halo 3, taking place on Earth, it's a welcome return to the familiar. Next up are some pretty basic encounters which give you time to get accustomed to the feel of combat in this new take on Halo without there being too much risk of you popping your clogs. So I want to use this time to touch on Dawn's music. One area Halo 4 doesn't draw on much at all from its predecessors is in its soundtrack, which is a radical departure from the work of Marty O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore we enjoyed so much across the trilogy ODST and Reach. Composed by Neil Davidge and Kazuma Janucci, it's a very hit or miss affair that moves so far away from previous motifs as to often become unrecognisable, but it does nonetheless have its bright spots. Janucci's pieces, for me, tend to be the OST's stronger entries, particularly those which are less generic orchestral and incorporate more otherworldly elements, and the track Intruders, which kicks in after the Covenant's big reveal, is a great example of that. It's an instantly recognisable number which fits Dawn's mysterious tone to perfection, something which can't always be said about the way Halo 4's missions and music combine. Listen to Intruders, then later tracks Belly of the Beast and Gravity After to see what I mean. The first may not be in keeping with what we're used to, but it has its own merits, while the other two sound a lot like those you can hear in most other shooters. With a fair few deceased grunts, jackals and elites now filling the ship's hallways, it's time to head outside to launch a missile at one of the Covenant's cruisers. You're also given your first hint that Cortana may be having a few issues.
The auxiliary launch station should be to your left, out of the airlocks. You'll have to prime the launch for ignition.
Cortana.
It's nothing. Just get to the launch station.
Tackling the Covenant on the outside of the Forward Unto Dawn is one of the more memorable parts of Halo 4 in my eyes, although it's not without its shortcomings. From a combat perspective, it does plenty right. 343 leaves you a battle rifle it's practically impossible to miss upon entering the area, a trick Bungie often used to ensure you had at minimum one weapon suited for the following encounter. Blasting the Covenant as more and more weapons and bodies begin to float around you adds spectacle to proceedings, as does the arena's scale. Combat feels suitably cinematic without going over the top as 343 sometimes does during the rest of the campaign. Their obsession with environmental visual clutter, with many surfaces being over-designed and too busy, is an issue, but my biggest problem is with the music itself, or rather the fact it's included at all. One of the most interesting things about an encounter like this is that you can't hear anything near as well as you can the rest of the time, which makes the soundscape unique. Why you'd then add a loud orchestral score on top which detracts from the atmosphere which could have otherwise been built is beyond me. Although Chief does succeed in his goal, firing a missile directly into the heart of a Covenant cruiser, it's seemingly an exercise in futility as a gravity well begins sucking in everything around it. Back inside, you have to run a gauntlet as what remains of the ship begins to fall apart around you. I've mentioned the idea of Halo 4 being cinematic a few times now, in terms of both music and combat especially, as it's without doubt something 343 tries to regularly inject into Halo 4. As mentioned, they go way too far with it way too often, but if it were just a brief sequence like this one every now and then, I'd have no problem with their inclusion whatsoever. Despite a valiant effort, Master Chief is unable to escape the gravity well, and after a nasty bump, Dawn fades to black to reveal the game's title, another first for the series.
We're caught in the gravity well.
Can you track the escape pods?
Negative. Look out!
While I'm not a huge fan of 343 Industries' maiden outing as a whole, Dawn in Isolation is an excellent way to kick off their time with the franchise. I previously put it somewhere in the middle when I ranked Halo 4's missions by quality, but upon re-evaluation, I'd say it deserves to be somewhere closer to the top. Its opening minutes do a good job of building tension before combat becomes the norm, the similar setting to older Halo titles and the accompanying smaller references show that 343 must have had some reverence for Bungie's work, and the battle outside combined with the race to escape inside combine to create a compelling conclusion. There's nothing in Dawn that will make your jaw hit the floor, but I wouldn't imagine that was priority number one for 343. Instead, I'd guess their aim was to build a solid opening which felt old and new at the same time, and in many ways, I think they did just that. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and Spartans. If you had a good time, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your thoughts. And all's well, we'll catch up again soon.